Hi, I'm Dr. Joe McGinley here at the McGinley Clinic in Casper, Wyoming. We have a very special guest with us today. We have retired Navy SEAL Commander Rorke Denver. Rorke, welcome back.
Good to see you.
Known you for a few years, and wonderful to have you back in the building. How have you been?
Appreciate it. Oh, I'm great. I mean, I'm ready for another round of work, but I'm great because I know what the back end of it is.
Well, before we talk business, what brought you here to Wyoming on this trip? Why don't you give the listeners a rundown of your Wyoming trip?
I think we're now 2 for 2 on I've scheduled any work I've done with you around the hunting season, which I think is probably a typical Wyoming issue. But no, came up for an elk hunt with a good buddy, completely planned it around. All right, I can do what I need to do, pick up a big animal, even hurt myself even more. You can fix whatever happens, and I'll come in. So it's good time. Yeah,
I think we'll use that for some advertising here. If you're from out of state, come on in for a good
hunt.
Yep. You can work yourself over, we'll get you fixed up. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice seeing you. Glad you were able to make it. It's wonderful to catch up. So today, give our viewers a little bit of background on yourself. Share a bit about your journey as a Navy SEAL. What drew you to that? What drew you to that type of career?
Yeah. I grew up in the Bay Area, California. This is before, I think that place has all kinds of funny thoughts around it with Silicon Valley in the heart of that world. When I grew up there, it was apricot orchards and like a normal place to grow up. I mean, it was nice, but it wasn't what it became. And athlete my whole life, big reader, didn't really like school a lot, but loved to study the things I like to study. And then I played lacrosse in college. Went back east to play lacrosse, got to play at a national championship level team back at Syracuse. So I always liked playing rough, being athletic and being real physical. And then when I was in my senior year, I really didn't know what I wanted to do next. And my dad, brother, and I, you know my dad, and he sent me a book by Winston Churchill. So it was one of his autobiographies.
Right.
Something about that book just really ended up being a spark that service would be the right place for me to start. And so I did a little bit of research. I couldn't find, back now there's so much about Navy SEALs. Then there was nothing. I mean, it was just the Vietnam era guys and their forefathers. And so there wasn't a lot you could find, but I found, I read about Green Berets and Rangers and all these different elite units, Marine units. And I found some little thing about SEALs that said 80% of the people that show up don't make it. I was like, that's my spot. If that's the toughest spot, let's go there. And that proved to be true. It also proved to be the perfect place for me. And then I hit it in unbelievable timing. I hit it pre 9/11 for a couple of years. I guess it's weird to say that, but if you imagine being an athlete practicing all the time and never getting to play a game, you'd be crazy. And we don't want to see the world fall apart. But when it did, we're like, well, we get to go to work. So then, based my era, generation of guys got to chase bad guys for a decade and a half. So yeah, it was pretty incredible.
How long did you serve in the SEALs?
I did 20 years. I did 13 active duty years, almost 14 active duty years, which is a tough tipping point. You got to get to 20 to get to retirement and finish things off. But I'd really done everything I wanted to do in my time as far as turning over stones on what I wanted to learn in that job. And then you kind of promote at some point a commander to doing the administrative side of things. And my bride and I wanted to start a family, and it was just time. So I came off that, but I finished my 20 in the reserves. And then, I got my full 20.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
One thing people may not know about you, and I know it's probably not the most fun thing to talk about, but star actor, you're a movie star as well. Active Valor.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that. You and I have chatted about this. We could do a whole show on that.
For sure.
On that. How'd that come about? What were your thoughts on that movie?
It was unique, and it was a strange experience. I was at the training command, so I was kind of past my combat operational time, and I was running our basic training command. So only SEALs train SEALs to kind of come into the program. And we were in a moment in time in the military, nobody external would pay attention to this, although I think probably the nation has seen, we do have a lot of reduced numbers coming in, which is scary. You don't have enough going in. You got to maintain that force. We really had a big drop off in the guys that were coming in, or guys that were retiring, and the new guys coming in. So that the community was looking for a way to sort of promote, and it was just not something we'd ever done. It's like, how do we do this? We don't have a website that people are following. We don't have a YouTube channel. All this stuff was in its infancy anyway. And so a company had come in to do some commercials just to update the website. And then somehow they got the idea of doing a bigger production. And so myself and about 12 guys got literally ordered to go down to the beach and do an interview, just like you and I are, with the director. They filmed it, but it was really for the director to learn about SEALs, what we believed in, and kind of why we did what we did, how it impacted us, and so on. And then they were going to go back up to LA and find Vin Diesel and make a movie, you know? And they got back and watched all those videos. They're like, it is going to be easier to teach SEALs to be actors than actors to be SEALs if we want to get this right. And so they asked everybody to do it. Everybody said no to a man, like, absolutely not. That's not what we do. And then over some time, the directors really gained our confidence that they wanted to do it right. They didn't want to do a bunch of things that don't happen on the battlefield and be authentic with it without giving a playbook to Al-Qaeda at the same team as well. And then the community eventually put us on another set of orders that, well, you're going to do it. We want to do it. And I mean, I'm sure I could have thrown the flag and probably got out of it. But the kind of other main character with me, we had an interesting conversation beforehand. And he said, you know, one of the things that makes me nervous about if you don't say no is, he said, I know your reputation. You know, you're one of our officer war fighters that the guys respect and people think highly of. If you don't do it, like, our worst guys are going to say yes. Like the two guys that already started the Facebook page and have an agent and want to go be a movie star, they're going to say yes. They're going to embarrass us. So we did see it as a responsibility to you know, do it right. And yeah, it was strange. I mean, the whole thing was like filming scenes and seeing how it's done. I mean, looking literally behind the camera, it's unbelievable how much work it is. My respect for people that do that job went through the roof. It didn't appeal to me. There's too much standing around. You wait for cameras to get set up the whole time. You know, you're just like, when are we gonna go? And then you do it. But you know, the end product, it also met goal. We had unbelievable amounts of people come in after that, and I think it sustained it. And then all the legendary missions. I mean, right before the movie came out, the Bin Laden raid went down. It's like everything hit
just
at the exact same time to kind of, I don't know, put us in the forefront, probably more than most of the people in the community would want, but it's been good for getting the right people there.
Yeah, a great movie. Obviously, it's one of the blockbuster movies of all time, and you're right, the timing is great. And, you know, another thing we talked about, I was surprised, you personally don't get any residuals from this. You're doing that for Uncle Sam, and that was it.
No, we got Navy pay and 3 square meals a day. That's it. We actually all felt really good about that. Yeah. In the end, it was like, if we started getting those checks or something, it's like 8, 9 of us represented the community.
Right.
We didn't look at it as being us. You know, every once in a while somebody call you on a Saturday afternoon, like, watch your movie, check's coming. I'm like, no, it's not. But yeah, no, we feel all right about it.
Good. Well, yeah, appreciate you chatting about that. Yeah. Back to your training. So obviously there's multiple movies and TV shows now out on Navy SEALs. How realistic is the training that you see on those shows compared to what's real life?
Yeah, nothing. I mean, a few that shows that have gotten actual access to our real compound, then you're seeing it. But no one's ever gotten full access from, you know, start to finish. And any show that's ever tried to mimic or done some special operations selection course and train with Green Berets or SEALs or Rangers, it doesn't even approach it. It just doesn't. And mostly it doesn't because, one, they're in some way casting a show and people are testing themselves, but there's no consequences for the end state of what you're going to go do. I mean, you're just doing it to see if you can do the workout. The workouts to prepare you for war, which is a lot more intense than the workouts leading up to war. You know, so we don't do that for fun. It's to prepare somebody to become a warrior and handle the rigors of an actual battlefield environment. But the duration is the thing that they can't capture. You can't. Nobody's going to film a TV show over a year to become a SEAL. And that's what it takes. I mean, from about the day you show up to the day you show up with your first team, you're training for a year. So none of those days are easy.
The endurance side really doesn't get captured.
It does not get captured. And even individual days. And then I think the other thing is very hard to capture is just, it is this struggle of becoming part of that team, becoming part of this bigger military structure that almost everybody that goes through SEAL training, they just started their careers. It's not usually somebody wasn't in the Navy for 7 years, then comes to us. You know, it's just this entire shift of your life into this other thing that you're never going to be the same from. And are you going to make it a career? Are you going to follow it all the way through? So there's just a lot of things that are happening in the window side that can't be captured. And again, you know, whether those people are trying to win a show for money or just try it, you're trying to win a reputation amongst people that you're going to go shoulder to shoulder with in the worst environment imaginable. That's a completely different mindset and intensity level than you're going to find in testing it.
Yeah, so you can't quite capture that.
No.
This may be a hard question to answer, but, you know, in your years of experience, both in training and live combat, what was the number one most physically demanding thing that you had to do.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say it. I was just talking to a teammate of mine. We both we went through training together, and we were in the same boat crew. So it means we did all our individual workouts. So when you see SEALs run with boats on their head or the logs over your head, that's all in a team, environment. Sure. And he and I were on the same team. Then we both ran training. So we both had great perspective on the program. He sent me a text last week and said, I know the answer, but I want to make sure I confirm with you what's the number one hardest physical evolution at SEAL training. I was like, log PT, hands down. So that log is basically a telephone pole. You and 7 of you in a boat crew have to do all these exercises from picking it up, sit-ups, over your head carry, different types of exercises. Then you're running them down the beach. You're getting them wet so they get heavier. All these different things, but it's one of those that if everyone works together in perfect harmony, it's horrible. And only if there's 10 boats that were doing that, only 3 will do that. So it's worse for the other 7. And we joked about it that we were so good at it because we actually really did work together well, and we had a strong group, but just destructive. And I remember when I ran the program, a doc came out to test the program. He was just doing some studies, and he's like, what's the physical benefit to this? I was like, nothing. And he's like, well, why would you do it? It's like, well, that's not the point. It's will you quit when things get hard? Will you carry your part of the load when things are challenging? It's other things. But no, it's probably damaging. I would imagine we lose a couple candidates a year with a shoulder blowout or something because of this, but that's not the point.
Perfect transit. I was just going to ask about it. As a physician, I could probably list about 100 potential injuries that you guys can sustain. What are some of the injuries that you've endured over the years, if you're comfortable talking about it? But what have you dealt with over the years?
I was staggeringly lucky in my time, and I guess God and my parents made me strong, but my body held up unbelievably well. I mean, guys in training would have catastrophic injuries or just all those ones that accumulate, stress fractures and, all kinds of soft tissue damage and unbelievable amounts of battle wear. Right. My body held up great. I mean, to be honest, I made it all the way through, training all my combat rounds. I think we might have talked before. We'll have to comment on when I know the night when I told you I had a shoulder issue, and you're like, do you even know what I do for a living? But I had one surgery in my whole time in the military. I was in Iraq. A buddy I'm a big guy, but there's a buddy of mine that's a little bit bigger than me. We had hit a target, and we're standing outside this fence. We're actually both smoking cigars. It sounds like a scene out of a movie. We should not have been doing that. But we had, everything was quiet. We were good. And all of a sudden we had one of those Pulp Fiction moments where bullets are hitting the wall behind us. And we're like, we should get over this wall. So I push him over. He pulls me over and something rips in my shoulder. And so the Navy cut on that shoulder and did a full-on surgery. And it was a nightmare. It took me a year to not really fully heal. And it was the worst. But that being said, I have a large number of teammates that are just destroyed. I mean, they look like former pro athletes, probably worse in a lot of ways. I mean, let alone all the mechanical injuries you can take on, the wear and tear from endurance and overall stress of underload, that, and then you're also getting blown up and let alone getting shot. I mean, brain injuries. I mean, there's just so much that the guys that do what we do take. I feel very blessed. I mean, there's every once in a while we'll get a call from a buddy like, man, Mike's falling apart or Jim's having a hard time. You're like, ugh. And as a gift, I've referred multiple people over to you that are buddies. It's unbelievable the difference from that Navy experience to our first round. But I got very lucky. So really, shoulder's only one. I had a couple. I broke a couple fingers, things like that. Got some stitches and cuts, a bunch of bruises, but unbelievably clean based on the insanity I was involved in the whole time.
How many missions?
Probably 300 plus missions.
And just that shoulder, really?
Just that shoulder. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is impressive. I've got to say, that's that's like taking an NFL football player and having them play 50 seasons in a row and not getting injured. I mean, that's incredible. But that is lucky. So when you got that shoulder injury, I mean, how'd that affect you mentally?
It was, I think, it didn't break me down. That first one didn't break me down bad because I sort of had gotten to this end of as hard as you can go and was like, man, if the only thing I heard is a shoulder, that's pretty good. I mean, I had buddies that are missing limbs and way worse. So that wasn't bad at the time. It got worse after because I did kind of a regular Navy surgery. I love the military. The military medical system it has a lot of special components to it. One part that's tough is you can just get in this cattle call where you're not going to get kind of personalized care. I was at the time working for an admiral. The admiral had just had shoulder surgery. He's like, well, I'm going to have the doc that did mine do yours. Of course, this guy's, the oldest doc that's been doing shoulders, consults with the San Diego Chargers. This is going to be great. Right. He does my consult. He didn't do my surgery. And so you're like, well, great. I didn't have the guy that I thought I was going to have. And then it was the first time after being so strong, D1 sports, this whole, about 10-year window in the SEAL teams. And then now I'm hurt and like down and in a sling and doing physical therapy. And now the nice thing was I was in peak shape. So when you're in peak shape and then you go to heal, you're in a better place to heal than if you're out of shape.
Right.
But no, I was shocked at how long it took. I had good docs and PAs and, so no, I don't have to pay for it. So I could do therapy every day. And it was a year. It was a year until I felt like I was strong again, and I did not feel 100% by any stretch.
So during that year, that had to have limited what you could do. You at least had to think about it, right? Saying,
I did. Yeah.
I can't hurt that shoulder. I can't do this with that shoulder. And,
yeah. No. It took me out of, there weren't any things that probably popped up that I missed. I was at our training command at that point, but you're also at a training command. You're sort of the archetype for the students coming in. Yeah. Now I'm walking around with like a soft pad shoulder sling for months, and then just nowhere near where I feel like I should be able to set the standard. So no, it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling.
Well, let's get to a little bit of how you and I met. So I knew your dad, and he made the introductions. He said, Rorke's a short distance from you, and introduce you guys. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about that? What brought you up, and how did we first come about?
Yeah, no, my dad. It was funny because my dad's probably one of the most fiscally conservative people you ever meet. He's a very successful lawyer, thinker, human, but he's just not somebody that's going to take a flyer on about anything. But he told me about you and one part of your company that he was going to invest in. He's like, yeah, you got to meet this guy. It'll be great. I said, sounds good. And then I remember you and I got talking, and then I think you had an event that you're hosting here in Casper. There's kind of a political event. I got to come up and give a pep talk, and then I was little talk of the event. But we hadn't talked about any medical stuff. And I remember I was getting out of your truck, and I went to go put on my sport coat. I was like, oh man, my shoulder. And you're like, what's going on with your shoulder? And I was like, I don't know. I think I tore something. He's like, I remember you saying, you're like, do you have any idea what I do for a living? Because I think the thing that my dad was working on was maybe with some other technology.
Yes.
And so I was like, no. And you're like, I'm the best person on earth at doing these shoulders. But anyway, we got talking. I was like, well, maybe there's something there. And then, I think we had imagery a week later, and you were like, you're a perfect candidate. So that was meant to be.
Yeah, your dad and I, we were working together on the investment for our startup company, but you're right, that's completely separate from our clinic. And,
right.
You're up here for the Republican event here in Natrona County.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful event. And then, it was like, this is what we do. And believe it or not, that happens. I have like friends that'll be like, oh yeah, my knee's bugging me. And thinking this, I'm like, that's what I do, right? It's like, exactly. And you just got to go about it. Yeah. So after we chatted, we decided to get you in for treatment on both shoulders at that time. What type of limitation? At that point, obviously, you're out of the military on an active basis. Yeah. How were the shoulders limiting you then? So
well, I don't know if you remember this from our first round. So my right shoulder, my strong arm my dominant arm was the one that was hurting really bad. And we only imaged that to start. And then I remember I came up and you at the last minute said, let's image them both. And then if you remember, you came in the office and you're like, so the right shoulder I know we're working on. I was like, you said, can you press on your left shoulder? And I was like, you bet. You pressed on it. You're like, does that hurt? I said, no. You're like, it's way worse on imagery.
Yep.
And so we could do both. So I was like, let's do it. And that ended up being a gift because I'm sure that would have deteriorated even worse. But no, at that point, even off active duty, I like training jiu-jitsu. I like hunting in backcountry. I like going up and down hills. I like playing rough, and pretty much most of what I do. I think I was still playing a little bit of lacrosse at the time, and I just had gotten to a point where all the strength had gone out of it, all the power gone out of it. I could do things at certain functional angles or certain asks of it, but then I'd go to like grab a peanut butter jar and I'd almost fall to my knees. It hurt so bad. I just had those little, twitch points that were just terrible. So it got to a daily discomfort to where you're like, I'm uncomfortable all the time.
And jiu-jitsu as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally playing a sport where you're attacking joints and, keeping people from attacking joints. So it's probably those have to be good clients here, because there's a lot of attacking going on.
It's a lot of shoulder work there. Yeah. So shoulder impingement essentially is what we were able to identify. Yeah. And, for those that are unaware, it's exactly what you described. So when you're moving your shoulder, the rotator cuff tendons get pinched under the bones at your AC joint, and it can drop you. I mean, that pain can be significant. It's usually when you're raising your arm above your head. And that's something that can wear and tear over time. So with impingement, those tendons are still moving, and they're rubbing on that area that's narrow. And it's almost like taking a rope and rubbing it across a rock. Right. That rope will start fraying, start tearing, and then eventually you end up requiring a surgery to fully repair that tissue. I'm glad we were able to catch that for you. We saw it on the left side, and we're like, it's coming on this one. You may not feel it, but it's coming. Right. And a lot of people don't realize that getting these problems fixed ahead of time before there's a more significant injury, I mean, that makes all the difference in the world. It makes our job easier to fix it before it's a major problem. That's a change in mentality for some people to think about it that way and saying, let's get this taken care of. So you came up here, we developed a procedure to treat this through a minimally invasive approach. We were the first, and I still think we're the only ones nationwide doing this, but we're using a needle essentially that vibrates at a high frequency. We clean out that area, and then we go in and use cell therapy to treat the tears in the tendon. So several years ago when we first had you come in and treated both shoulders, how'd you do after that procedure? Yeah. Well, sorry, let's talk about the procedure. So in the office, right? Wide awake. Let's talk about that.
The whole thing was amazing. I mean, I think even upon description, I didn't really have a great sense of it because it's hard to kind of capture in your mind. When I had that shoulder surgery in the Navy, I mean, I'm sitting in a gurney. They're putting me general anesthesia. I wake up, not knowing who Tracy is, and then my shoulders hurts. Right. So you're like, that's a treat. Right. I come up, get breakfast with the buddy that I was with, and then we came in. I remember we did some imaging, and then I remember you extracted the stuff out of my hip or cut out through the back, and then you're like, we'll spin these things up. Then I got to get in there and smooth some stuff out, and I think I was amazed at how little discomfort there was. It's not something I do for fun on a given Tuesday, but it wasn't like, oh my God, let me bite a leather scrap to get through this thing. Just worked. And then it was amazing. You were able to do both. You were in some heads-up display. You look like you're getting ready to fly an F-35. And then all of a sudden the stem cells go in and you're like, we're done. Yeah. And then it was great. I mean, there wasn't any, I don't think you're not allowed to take painkillers, but there was a need for that. It was just like, all right, they're a little angry, the shoulders unhappy. And then my buddy drove me home a couple days, being real chill. It's been interesting talking to, I have other friends that have done PRP and some other friends that have done stem cells, and their docs, I feel like, have been like, a couple days and then really have let them run. And I remember you saying, hey, you're going to be 3 days, don't do anything. Be really careful. At least that's what I remember. And then I think you said, I'm going to have you 3 weeks in the sling. It's not really because you need to perfectly be in the sling, but I don't want you picking up your kid, grabbing a suitcase, doing something dumb. And I remember a couple of friends that told me, they're like, oh man, it seems conservative. I was like, yeah, but they healed. Yeah. And so I did that. And then I remember at 3 months, I think you said, hey, they can't do anything else at this point. You're full go, but don't go do an Olympic PR today. But I went to jiu-jitsu pretty quickly thereafter and just, took my time. But I mean, at 3 months, I felt like they went back to 100%.
Perfect. Yeah. And you hit on a couple of great points there. Compared to surgery, again, there's no general anesthesia. You're wide awake the whole time. You came in that morning, we got you all taken care of, and you were driving back to Denver that afternoon. No pain medicine, maybe Tylenol if needed. That's about it. But it's much different than having a surgery where you're out under anesthesia. You have that mental fog afterwards. You're dealing with all the recovery. And then you're back to activity sooner. And the management afterwards actually 2 weeks of no activity and then 2 weeks of partial activity. Right. And you're right that they are right. That is a conservative protocol because you want those tissues to heal. A lot of the other places will get around it by doing multiple injections. That's a waste of your time and money. So we'd rather do it right the first time and make sure it recovers. It's like anything else. If you break a bone, you don't just go back and start using it 3 days later, right? You put it in a cast and you don't use it for several weeks because it has to heal. no magic to these cells. You put them in there, they have to repair the tissue. People may not know, I don't know if you know this or not, I've had stem cells myself as well. So the same torture I put you through, I went through myself. And I did great. A few months out, I was doing amazing. And I've been climbing all these mountains. And for me, I think I'm coming up on 6 years now, 5-6 years on my treatment. And, I'm out climbing at the highest mountains around. And symptoms, it's amazing.
And I'm about the same. I'm about 5 years, and I've been doing jiu-jitsu and going hard and carrying elk and big animals all around the place and doing push-ups and all my regular workouts. I definitely think I'm curious this time to as we go into another round of like how to build muscle and do that right, like that exact protocol of kind of from when we do things tomorrow to like build back up to strength and not rush into it, because it is. I'm fine with the conservative at this point. There was a time it was like rub dirt in it and I'm going to go run up to another Taliban target. I'm not there anymore. I like take as much time as I need to get back to extend it, and just make it last.
As we get older, we have to get more responsible. That's how it goes. So you got back to the activities, and one of those activities was jiu-jitsu. And you said that, I was like, man, you are really going to test my limits on these procedures. But you're back at it fully. I mean, the last 5 years, you've been doing that with no issues. And competing routinely, training almost every week.
Most weeks, unless I'm traveling, doing something 3 to sometimes 5 days a week. And I'm in the big guy division, so I'm usually going with, you get to go with everybody, but mostly the big guys pick the big guys. And so I'm never trying to push a light person off me or keep on top of them. So
it's two grizzly bears going at each other.
For sure.
So someone's thinking of coming out here to the McGinley Clinic and getting some of these procedures, whether it's stem cells, treatment for rotator cuff injuries, PRP. We do all that stuff. What advice would you give someone who's thinking about it? We have a lot of patients that come in from out of state. Someone's on the fence saying, I'll just get it done locally. What's your advice? What would you say?
I've done it. I don't have to think about it much because I've had a bunch of friends. All my friends are athletes, or we're former military, or are all super active people. And when anyone even remotely mentions something going on, I'm like, hey, before you do anything else, because half the time they're like, I've got a podiatrist, or I've got a shoulder guy, or I'm talking to an orthopedic surgeon. I'm like, stop. Do you have the imagery? I was like, send it to my buddy Joe. And we've done that 10 times, with buddies, and been like, and some of them are good candidates. If they're not. I tell them like, look, that he and that clinic are going to shoot you straight. If you're a good candidate, you're a good candidate. If they're not, you're not. Right. And worst thing you do is start there and see if it's a good fit. And then I've had several people who've done that, nothing but the same results as mine, fantastic results. I just think it's a no-brainer. I wouldn't hesitate. The thing I think I learned in particular, look, I'm 51. I've got a whole bunch of my dad's friends that are, now 60, 70, 80-year-olds that are like, why didn't I do some of these things sooner? I waited too long. Now I can't fix it. And any one of them that, replaced a joint, did some procedure, did something to take care of themselves, I don't know one of them that didn't say I should have done it 5 years sooner. So as soon as this thing started hurting again, I was like, time to make a phone call.
Well, glad we'll get you taken care of here again, for sure. And on the timing of things, that's also a good point. For us, it's easier to take care of it when it first starts, not when you can't move it at all anymore. From a minimally invasive, we do everything through minimally invasive techniques. So not your traditional surgeries. These are interventional procedures. So the best starting point is early on, and then we can usually prevent those invasive surgeries down the road. Sometimes surgeries need it. And you're right. If we look at the images and say, this is fully torn, we need to get you into a surgeon. They either are going to talk to you about a joint replacement or a full repair. We'll give you that advice and we'll send you to the right individual. And then another thing people don't realize is this is open to anyone. You don't have to be an American hero and movie star to come in here. Exactly. We treat really anyone with an orthopedic problem and get them in.
And it's been fun too, because one of my best friends, one of my now longest lasting friends, she and I met each other in 7th grade, her husband and their kiddos and my bride, all good friends. She has been an athlete her whole life, very, very active. She has something going on in her feet. And I was like, I don't know if they do feet, but call. And she's like, hey, I think something good could happen there. So no, I think it's, I would tell anybody, if you have almost any injury, before you go to full on blow it out surgery, I'd check with you guys first.
Yeah, you can always have surgery. If we can do it from a less invasive approach, that's always better.
Yep.
You can always go to surgery in the end, but if you replace that joint, we can't do anything about it at that point. So at least give us a call. Again, there's no charge for that. We'll get them in, take a look, and then if they want to come out, we'll get them taken care of. So going through this journey, again, you've been lucky to not have many injuries, but when you dealt with the shoulders, you can see how disruptive that can be. What do you see as far as the importance of taking care of yourself and taking care of it right the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I think we caught it before it went catastrophic, and so that gave me a big block of time to keep going hard. And I mean, we joked when I called you this second time, I was like, man, am I going to be doing all this time? You're like, well, if you were playing fantasy football and pickleball, you'd probably never see me again. You do jiu-jitsu and do all this. Like, you want to go hard? I'm like, look, that's what I want to do. I actually, when it kind of came around again, I was frustrated at first. And I'm like, what a time to be alive. Like, that you can actually do all the things deep into your age and athletic ability. And if it needs to be fixed, it can be fixed. It's like the best thing ever. So no, I'm glad I got it early. That's why I called you this time, because I can tell I need it. I don't know how much. We'll see when you look at it. But I'd rather be on the front end of it than being like, I waited too long.
Just a bit of a correction there for you. Pickleball, we see injuries for that all the time. It's fairly intense. It's, believe it or not, the number one sport growing here in the U.S. And it's getting people active. And there's a lot of, believe it or not, a lot of shoulder injuries. So you're not safe. There you go. It's not all jiu-jitsu. It's pickleball's really turning up their shoulders as well. I literally just treated someone today for a pickleball injury.
That's the best.
So, that's also in our repertoire. Just to wrap things up here, we're going to be working on you here tomorrow. You're here today. Go out to dinner, get some food. Tomorrow morning, you'll have breakfast. Come in. We'll get some images, see what's going on with these shoulders. Get you treated. You'll be on the road probably shortly after noon. It's going to be
home for dinner.
You'll be home for dinner, and then we'll get you through that protocol. And what are you looking forward to after this next procedure? Back to jiu-jitsu?
Get right back to training. I mean, it's of course, you never get injured at the right time, right? I felt like I'm in one of those gaps where you kind of go between belts and jiu-jitsu, which in jiu-jitsu is like a massive thing. There's a lot of discipline sports where it's a little more on time and reps, and you're not testing against a real skill set. Jiu-jitsu is pitiless in giving you the next belt, and I'm kind of right on the cusp of the next one. And I was like, I got to have this. I'll just be excited to continue with that progression. But no, I have every intention to keep playing rough, and we do this 10 more times, fine by me.
I mean, when you chatted, it's like you're negotiating with me on the schedule. I'm like, listen, it's your body. You gave the whole speech. You know what the consequences are of waiting.
That's
right. But life can sometimes you have to prioritize that out. You just got back from the hunt. You know, there's no way you're carrying those elk out with the right after the procedure. So it's good you got all that done. And with the holidays coming up, it's a good time to get this taken care of and get that handled. So. Anything else you want to add before we wrap things up here today?
No, I'm just excited. I give you thanks both as a buddy for you and your family, but the fact that I really mean it. It is an amazing time to have this technology, these procedures, and an ability to do it where I'm not going to be down, drugged up. I get to go home this weekend, hang out with my daughters. I might be in slings, but I'll be fine in no time, and then I'm back to 100%. And that really was the result last time. I don't know how that percentage works for everybody, and maybe if it's not 100, it's 98. I mean, I went from like falling down with a peanut butter jar to full training as hard as you can train with big people. That's a remarkable turn.
Oh, man, it's impressive. It's great to see it, great to hear it, and looking forward to your success. So, I appreciate you coming out. That's Rorke Denver, retired Navy SEAL commander, movie actor, active valor. Visit his website. He has a podcast that he does a lot of motivational speaking. Definitely check it out. I've heard him speak before. It's just incredible. Look on his website, and he has lots of material out there. If you have questions about the McGinley Clinic, McGinleyClinic.com. We're going to be partnering. We're the official orthopedic clinic of Pro Motocross. We're going to be partnering with IndyCar Racing this year with Andretti Racing. So lots of cool stuff going on, but not exclusive to athletes. Anyone with orthopedic problems, give us a call. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, everywhere. McGinleyClinic.com, located in Casper, Wyoming. Thanks, Rorke. Appreciate you coming out today.
Appreciate it.